So I am over the moon to have Joel Barnett from InStyle Gardens. Now you're out of Grovedale, East Victoria, right? Australia.
Yeah, basically in Geelong. So just Grovedale's a smaller suburb of Geelong.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering the right way to kind of say all that.
Yeah.
And we never would have pronounced that.
Nope.
Had he not done it first.
Nope. So I'm glad you did.
It's a strong G.
And so we were just talking about how completely amazing it is that the technology is working so well so far. So
I know. And he's coming in crystal clear. It's a beautiful thing. This is the latest podcast we've ever recorded because it's 9 a.m. where you are, correct?
Yeah, it's my earliest podcast. Yep.
There you go. So this works. We're all newbies. I love it.
Did you have your coffee this morning?
Yeah, well, all set to go.
Good.
Awesome. Well, I know that Neil has a really, really important, serious question, as our first questions always are, that he needs to throw at you.
We need to clarify. I need some understanding. So how does a gentleman like you living in Australia become a Seahawks fan? How does this happen?
It's because of an Australian connection. So back probably, I think it was 2000 and, I don't know, might be 13 or so. There was a fella from Alabama called Jesse Williams. So he was Australian D tackle, and there's a news story about him being the first Australian to ever get drafted to the NFL. So I started following him in that year, his last year at Alabama, and then he got drafted to the Seahawks in the 5th round. But that was extremely unlucky. So in the preseason of his first year, he did his knee, had a reconstruction, so missed the whole first season. Second season, he came back. Preseason, he did his knee again.
Oh my
gosh!
Then
in his 3rd year, preseason, he got cancer. So he
my gosh!
Never actually played a game. But that's why I follow the Seahawks. But so he got all cleared now and he's all fine. He's living back in Australia. But yeah, that's how I got started following the Seahawks. And then a year or two ago, they drafted an Australian punter. So I was pretty excited about that with Michael Dixon as well. So yeah, and we started this year off pretty well too.
Oh yeah.
Is the NFL popular there?
A little bit. Like people who like it, and people who don't know about it, yeah, it's one or the other, really. The Super Bowl is pretty popular. There's big parties about that, but most of the season it's not. It's getting bigger, but yeah, the NBA is probably a lot bigger than the NFL.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, you have a good national team.
Yeah, like as in the NBA, in the NBA.
At the Olympics, the national national team, right?
Yeah, Andrew Bogut was in it. He was a former #1 pick, and Ben Simmons. So yeah, some good players from Australia, and Paddy Mills.
Yeah. Yep. I remember.
Aaron Baines, he was at Boston, I think.
Yes.
Oh, he was Australian.
Right. Yeah, he was. We miss him because he was our big enforcer last year.
Yeah.
And it's a small ball team now, and they could use his size. He was a good player.
He was a good player.
Yep. He's still in the league. I forget where he went, but yeah, I know they didn't pick him up.
Went to Milwaukee, maybe. Not sure.
Possibly. Yeah. He was just a beast. He looked like a football player.
Yeah, they're massive. It's insane.
Yep. So tomorrow our Patriots are playing the Seahawks. So I don't have a good feeling about the Patriots pulling that off.
Because they did all right last week.
They did. It's a different style of football, but I don't know. Samantha's she's a little distraught because she's a huge Tom Brady fan.
Yeah,
I am.
And I'm pretty excited about Cam Newton because it's different. And so far, it's fun. So we'll see. It's a new era, but I don't feel good. Going to Seattle tomorrow.
No, I'm just glad it's not one of the early games because the first game's on Sundays. It's 3:00 in the morning for us. So that's when I get up to watch it.
Oh wow!
You'll watch it live?
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, so you're a diehard football fan.
Yeah, but I think in a couple of weeks you've got daylight savings ending, so then it goes till 4 a.m. and then ours starts and it goes till 5 a.m. like 4 weeks after that. So it's more bearable. Yeah.
You can sleep in.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
Well, Joel, so for our listeners, we want to kind of get some of the basic information out of the way in terms of your company. So are you design build in terms of your landscape constructions, or do you do some designs that you build yourself and then you build other people's designs?
Yeah, I say we're like 5% design and 95% construction because Yeah, I do a little bit, but I'm better at construction, so that's what we focus on. And I find it more interesting to do other people's designs.
Oh, that's interesting.
That big a variety in it. And yeah, I'll probably do 1 or 2 good designs a year, really. But
okay,
when they're good, they're good. But yeah, other people are a lot better at it because you got to spend more time on it. Like I just don't have the time to focus enough energy on the actual design. So yeah, construction is definitely what we're better at. But I'm wanting to transfer into more design the older I get, and so the less I can do on site. So that's plans down the track to start increasing that.
Well, I would imagine that's going to make you a pretty strong designer because you're on site seeing the other, styles of construction detailing and drawing that these architects are doing, plus you're building it. So that's going to be an interesting transition. I think it would be pretty smooth at that point.
Yeah, and you can tell working off designs of someone who's been in construction, they're so much better because they can think of how things work.
I love that you said that.
Yeah. Like it's just chalk and cheese.
Are you getting full site plans with detailed grading and drainage and everything, or on some designers' plans, is some of that left up to you to figure out?
Yeah, some don't even include any heights on there. So it's like a dream come true when heights are included on the plan. But it'd probably be maybe less than 50% of the designs we get have got the heights all taken care of. There's no grade. None of them have any. Well, one designer puts grading on there, but no, none of the other ones do. But yeah, it's sort of hard to, as a designer, I know it's hard to work all that out until you actually start building it. Well, it can change, certainly.
So you're responsible for setting like the coping height of a pool and the height of a retaining wall and all that.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting you say though that, you don't think of yourself as a designer, or I think you said not a great designer that other people, but the fact that you do that, the grading is so much a part of the design process that's you're essentially designing, you know what I mean? If your grading isn't correct, then that screws up everything.
Yeah, so you're more of an engineer at that point.
Right.
Wouldn't go that far.
Well, the drainage, the grading, that's huge. So those are all things that I learned primarily from working for a civil engineer. So we do all that in-house, which is helpful in terms of the design process. We can cheat a little bit on the design because we know we'll figure it out in the field, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. But even when we're designing, so I don't know if we are design build.
Yeah.
And it's just actually funny that you said that, the design part takes up a lot of time for you, and then not doing that allows you to focus more on construction. I mean, that is definitely a struggle that we have, I think, because we're trying to get everything done, and it's a lot of work, but we definitely do all the grading in-house so that by the time he has a plan when he's in the field, he's actually working with elevations. He's trying not to figure it out.
So will you try to figure that out with your pre-construction meetings on site and evaluations? You're formulating all that information where you can establish your heights before you show up with your crew and start building? Yeah,
because so when I get the design, I go out onto the site and to do the quote, I'll be taking that into account then, because you have to know what heights everything is at to know what size the walls and stone and that sort of things are going to be. So so you sort of do it at that point. And then it might change as you go along, where you make slight adjustments. But yeah, that's the main time to do it.
Interesting.
So what size is your crew? What kind of crew are you working with?
I've got 5 guys plus myself.
Oh, wow.
So there's, what have we got? 3 qualified, 1 third-year apprentice who's almost about to be qualified, a second year and a first year.
Okay, so explain what that means, qualified.
So you have apprenticeships in the US, do you? Do you do?
We do, but you don't have to necessarily. It depends what you want to do in terms of whether or not you have to be licensed in any way. So I think it may just work a little different here. So just explain.
I think the apprenticeships, we associate more of that with unions.
Right. And trades like plumbing and electricians. I mean, there are masons.
Even the concrete union.
There are masons, but.
Right. So, so we don't necessarily, because we're not a union and we're doing residential work, some commercial, we just have employees.
Yep.
And,
so the way it's done in Australia is there's an apprenticeship. You can do it in there: plumbing, electrical, building, landscaping. It's a 4-year apprenticeship, and so you'll spend 1 day a week at school doing theory, and the other 4 days a week on site. And the wage starts off pretty low because the skills are low, so there's set wages for apprentices. And then so the first year apprentices in their first year, obviously, and then after they do 3 years of school, as in 1 day a week for 3 years, and then the 4th year is just on site. So once they've finished the school, I just sign them off, and then once you finish your apprenticeship, then you're a qualified landscaper.
Oh, that's
Do
cool.
you have to have that in order to be a landscaper or to be in business as such?
No. So it's a bit of a grey area in terms of landscaping here. So I've got my building license in structural landscaping. So it's a limited building license, whereas if you've got an unlimited building license, you can build houses, whereas mine is limited.
Right, we have that kind of thing here,
Yeah, mine's limited to structural landscaping. So there's probably, in Geelong, there's probably 125 landscaping companies, and there'd be maybe 10 that have their landscaping registration or the building license. Okay. So, most people do work that's technically illegal, because anything over 16,000 that's done in conjunction with the building or reno of a house has to be done by a registered landscaper. But because it's not policed at all, really.
You say anything over 16,000, you mean
dollars?
Money.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so you have to have a contract, and you can only do a contract if you're registered.
Now, I imagine, say, with so we have a contractor's license. We're able to build a retaining wall to a certain height before we need to have
a construction supervisor's license that is also limited. Yeah.
Right. And then,
but it's state by state. All the states have different rules.
Yeah. So we live essentially on the border of 2 states. So we have I have hydraulics licenses and all these different things from all these places. So that sounds very much similar, but I would imagine being able to take these apprentices who are going to school for a year, they're vested in their education. That must be a huge kind of leg up on hiring.
Yeah, well, it's because it's a good way to do it, because they start on a lower wage, which is when they're learning and they don't have a clue what they're doing. Right. But a lot of the ones I employ are mature age apprentices, which means they're over 21 years old. It means they're on a higher wage. So they're on a higher wage to start with, but they're so much better than the younger ones who are 18. So you get what you pay for with them.
Okay.
There's set wages for different ages, but I find that the mature age ones are better value because they've got a bit more life experience as well.
That's true. And then it's nice because they have something that they can work towards. They know they're going to get to that goal for that next pay increase. Yeah.
Yep. And I tell them as well, if they're working for me, they'll get signed off early because we do everything, and I'll get everyone to do all the aspects involved in landscaping. So once they get qualified, they'll be skilled. Whereas some other people we've tried to employ have been working for someone else who doesn't do the whole range of landscaping. So then once they get qualified, they don't actually have all the skills of someone who would work for me or someone who does everything involved in landscaping. So being qualified doesn't mean that you're any good if you haven't got the skills. So you can still get qualified without knowing everything.
But what I find interesting about that, so one of the reasons we started this podcast in the first place is because we feel like the green industry, at least here, doesn't get the respect that it deserves. So really anybody can kind of, and I'd love to get your thoughts on how it is in Australia, but so really anybody can kind of come in and start doing this stuff and say they know what they're doing, but there's not really any, other than seeing what their work is, there's no real definitive way to figure out if they are qualified. So it seems to me that in your situation, the way that's working, there's this immediate kind of qualification that makes them seem more valuable and seem more valued. You know what I mean?
Well,
not just anybody can come and do it.
And they're coming in with an education too,
Right, well,
which
exactly.
is huge,
right?
Because here, short of going on to college, or maybe you were in more of a trade high school, short of that, you're not going to get any experience or even open to the world of everything that's green industry here without just jumping into a job somewhere.
Yeah.
So at least with you, they're getting exposure.
Yeah, the way I explain it is the ideal way to do it, but anyone can just start their own landscaping business and do smaller projects. So I know of a guy who had a second year apprentice. So this guy had been with him for maybe 18 months and then he put him off because he was no good. And then that guy went and started his own landscaping business. So people do that. So that's where being a registered landscaper, you've got that basically quality behind you, like quality assurance for the client. So but once you get your registration, you're not competing with the bottom end of the market.
Interesting. So I imagine from the end user, from the homeowners, if they're aware that you and your company and companies like you exist, that's huge. So they need to be aware that they need to employ these companies that are registered.
We're a member of Landscapes Victoria, who's like an industry association, and they do a lot of education for the public in that they do radio ads saying that you should be employing a registered landscaper, and so they help out with that.
That is what we need. That is amazing to hear you say that. That is so refreshing. That's unbelievable. Well,
so then back to my other question, do you feel like where you are anyways, do you feel like the green industry is valued?
It's more so now than it used to be. It's increasing, but extremely not a lot. It's extremely slowly. So the people who value it a lot, but the majority I wouldn't have thought. Because they're surprised you haven't got a lawnmower in the back of your ute if you're a landscaper.
Yeah. Which is surprising because the imagery that I see on Instagram coming out of your country sets the trend almost on every hashtag where you're talking about landscaping. It's incredible. I mean, the landscapes, the stuff you're working on, I can only explain it as sexy, man. It's like beautiful and chic and contemporary and it's just mind blowing. It's just all over the place. And some of the designers you're working with, I was scrolling through your page today in preparation for this, and a lot of people were following, like Paul Bangay. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Nathan Burkett, even the Hungry Wolves, the concrete studio.
Yeah.
You're working with all these really high-end professionals doing fantastic, beautiful work.
Yeah, that only happened in the last 4 years. So prior to that, so I started the business 11 years ago. And then after, I think, 3 or 4 years, it was going well. But we had a job booked in with a client. That was a big one. And then he pulled out late when it was in the middle of winter. So we had no work to go to. And my first child was, I think, 3 months old. So I thought I'd go and do something safe. So I went and worked at a bank instead of landscaping. And then did that for a couple of years and then decided to get back into landscaping and have a different mindset and actually focus on trying to work in the high end of the market rather than just taking on any job that comes along. So that's what I did since 2015, got back in and started thinking how I can work for these Paul Bangays and Cos Design and work with Hungry Wolf, working with the top end. So I was set about doing that. And then in the last 18 months, it started happening and it's pretty satisfying to be.
So how did your mindset change? What was it specifically? What actions did you take to make this happen?
Well, I knew that our quality was good enough. I just need to get those jobs. So the designers didn't know about me. So then we did things like the garden shows and pool and spa show so that people know about us. And then, I got addicted to them. So it's where a lot of my money goes into the garden shows. But and then, we got onto The Block, which is like a TV show here as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just basically getting our name out there so that all these top designers know about us. And then once you get an opportunity, you got to nail it. So when you get there, so we probably bought a couple of jobs in terms of quoting lower, just so we can get that and start to build up those projects. And now we're now starting to hopefully start making money on them, which would be nice.
Okay. So, all right. So there's a lot there.
I know. Can I go? Can I hit
go.
you? Can I go?
Go.
Okay.
Because this flower show thing.
I know, but that's where I'm going.
Burning your brains.
So we have flower shows here too.
Yeah.
And
but not like you.
No.
These are
no. Well, all right. Quick question before I talk about us. Quick question on your flower shows. Are they outdoors and are they up for a prolonged period of time? We were just curious about that.
Outdoors, and they're up for 5 days.
That's it.
Oh, that's less than I thought.
Because you are building some, intricate.
And you can't dig into the ground either. So it's all built above ground.
Okay.
So that makes
sense.
So
that's like what we've done. Okay.
Yeah. So the flower shows that we've done, they usually happen in the winter during our off season because we really can't build in the winter. And so they're indoors, and yes, you're building on kind of concrete floors, but so when we first started the business, we started to do them for really the same reasons, because we were trying to kind of get our name out there. But we have actually decided that because of the amount of money that you have to put into them, we felt like we just really weren't getting out. We weren't getting out of it nearly what we put into it. So we've kind of put a kibosh on it.
Well, we thought that, but things keep trickling in years later from these shows. That's all I'll say. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. Just to, mess with our minds a little bit and make us wonder if we should continue on. But I digress.
Well, but I think it's interesting, Joel, to hear how you've been successful with them, which kind of goes to the point of you have to just do what's right for your company.
Yeah. And I also wonder what your value.
It depends what your goal is from it. So when I initially was doing it, I was also thinking I'd get heaps of work from clients who see us there. And we get a couple every now and then, but it's nowhere near worth it. But it was just, the designers and industry knowing about, here's the way that it has paid off for us.
That's interesting. Yeah, I remember we kind of got lucky. The first show we ever did, we won Best in Show.
Right.
And we literally thought our lives were going to change. Like this was...
We're going to get so much work
done. We're going to be, we can't, we're going to be throwing work away because we can't take it on. But that did not happen, my friend.
But it's interesting because I don't think, you're right. When we first started, I like what you say about your goal, because when we first started doing them, I think our goal was to get work as opposed to just being known. And so maybe if our attitude changed.
Yeah, I think that was our attitude, to be honest with you, for the first 10 years in business. It was just get work. Because as you know, it's a hustle. So you're I don't know, we were always paranoid that we were going to run out of work. So to take a step back and realize, no, it's the designers, it's the builders, it's these people that we need to focus on. It's hard to find the time.
Do you worry you're going to run out of work?
No, we're booked out for 8 months at the moment, and we're getting 10 inquiries a week at the moment.
Good
wow.
For you. Yeah, so the market there is just hot? Is that?
I don't know if it's because of the COVID, because people are sitting at home knowing they're not going to be able to travel, if that's got anything to do with it. But it's honestly never been busier than what it is right now.
Interesting. Now with COVID, Samantha, you had some questions I know that you wanted to ask, because I thought.
I just wanted to say that, we just saw that Australia went into a second lockdown, right? Kind of a second lockdown period. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't kind of talk about how that's affecting you guys, like what's going on in Australia with COVID.
And what does lockdown mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the second wave has pretty much only been in Victoria, which is the state we live in. So that's like 20% of the country. But in saying that, Melbourne is Melbourne's the capital of Victoria. That's worse than the regional areas of Geelong, of Victoria. So Victoria's got a population of 6.5 million, and 5 million are in Melbourne.
Oh, wow.
So they're on stricter restrictions than what the regional areas are, and because we're regional, we're pretty much unaffected by it. So just extremely lucky to be in Geelong at the moment.
Interesting.
But so basically, people in Melbourne won't be able to work. I don't think you can work on a site if no one lives there. So if it's a construction site, but there can only be 5 people on site at any one time. So that includes any electricians or plumbers or builders or anyone.
So it's going to take a long time for those
Yes,
projects.
and that's until I think the 26th of October. And there'll still be. So if someone lives at the house, you can't work there at all. Until that time. And then even then, I think it's going to be number restrictions of 5 per site again. So, yeah, people in Melbourne, it's really tough for them at the moment. So just extremely lucky that we're down here in Geelong.
No, yes, honestly, because there's got to be companies that exclusively do work there, and they probably must be almost at a halt. Because you have I started talking to you on Instagram, I think over a project that you were doing in Melbourne, and it looks like that's on hold for you. And kind of, I think you said it was from either 2 months or like 2 years. You really didn't know.
Yeah, that was just a bit of a exaggeration and nobody knows when they're going to lift the restrictions.
Nobody knows. Yeah, exactly.
Does it see, and not to get too deep into it, but do those restrictions seem a little extreme to you that you can't work on a job site if someone lives there, but you're outside?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it's one of those things, the big grey area, again, coming back to the building license with having to have that for landscaping, is we're considered in the construction industries with builders. So it's more like landscapers, you're just tacked on to the back of whatever restrictions the builders have. So they sort of make the rule the builders can't go to a house where someone's living, not taking into the fact that landscapers work outside, so we don't have any contact with anyone anyway. It's easy enough to avoid contact with the client. So, yeah, it's extremely frustrating for the people who are affected by it.
Is that even accounting for the landscapers that are mowing and doing the maintenance on these properties there? Technically?
So I think they just, I don't know if it's next week or last week, but they're changing so that now that one person can go on site to do maintenance. So like lawn mowing and that sort of thing, but only one. So don't know how that is for safety if, they're on a ride on lawnmower and something happens, but there's no one there. So, help them out. But yeah, there's a lot of grey areas for everywhere with this COVID thing. Everyone's just making up things as they go. So not everything's going to please everyone.
I'm glad we can relate. We have something in common across the globe.
Yeah. Well, for us too, it was actually kind of the opposite because the way that they started with the shutdowns, essential businesses could still operate and construction was considered an essential business. And because we are as well are kind of lumped into construction, we actually never got shut down, which we were incredibly thankful for. So it kind of worked. It worked to our advantage to be in the construction industry.
Look, coincidentally, as you're saying that, I've got a breaking news notification that there's been 14 cases today for COVID. So that's how low the numbers are. And it's still, so that's for the 6 million people in the state, 14 new cases.
Yeah, in a huge state, like you're saying, with 6 million.
Yeah, we could go on about the numbers game for a long time. So I won't go down that road or else my head might explode.
So are your kids in school or are they completely virtual?
So they're going back next term, and that's only because we're in regional, and that's in I think they're on school holidays just this week. So 2 more weeks, and then they go back after that. But they're fine anyway. They've been the first sort of week of homeschooling there's a few tears from kids and parents, but then since then they've been fine. They finish before 12 o'clock once they get their work done. So. We're pretty lucky. So some kids obviously handle it worse than others, but ours are pretty, lucky that they're fine with it.
So how does that work? Because another reason why we wanted to do this podcast is we wanted to give people a real sense of what it means to be someone like you and own a business like this. I know I've read on some of your posts, it seems like you work a tremendous amount of hours, which I think we can relate with. So how is your partner and you square all this stuff away with running the business and now having kids at home and homeschooling? It's an interesting dilemma that everyone's having. So
my wife takes care of the kids a lot more than what I do because I'm working more, and then on the weekends we swap roles. But it's just something you just roll with as you go. The homeschooling, there's some times where I'll come home to help out, like maybe once every few weeks with that. So mainly her again. But it's just like no one knows what it's like until you start doing it. Even the teachers, it's all just sort of making things up as they go. So as long as everyone's all pretty flexible with, and they're not, and also because our kids are, the oldest is 9, so in grade 4, so it's not that critical of a schooling time. Whereas if they're older, like in year 10 or 11.
Yeah. Now, is your wife work with your business at all, or are you guys? Nope.
I couldn't be further from it. Like that's absolutely, no idea what's going on with it at all.
Well, actually, when you stepped out, Neil, Joel was saying that his wife works on weekends and he works during the week, and that they actually never see each other, which I wondered if that was a problem, but Joel seems fine with it. I don't know if his wife is.
Oh, she's more fine than me, yeah.
Whatever works, Joel.
Yeah,
whatever
that's
works.
It. So kind of getting back to talking about how you have been working with designers, I was kind of curious from a builder's perspective, what's your least favorite thing about working with designers? There's got to be something. What can we do better as designers for builders?
Better way to phrase it. Without throwing anyone on the bus, how can we improve this relationship?
Yeah, there's some designers like you look at them and think, I'd love to work for that designer. And then once you get a job with them and see what that's actually like, their design is and their abilities, can be quite eye-opening. It's one of those things, Instagram can be quite fake. So you see, you've got a perceived perception of what they're like, and then they're, not quite as amazing as you'd think they would be. So, probably seeing...
Give us an example. I can't let you get off the hook.
Yeah, the lack of detail on designs is the worst part. I understand some people, there's a concept design and then there's more detailed designs, and the client might even pay for a concept design. But it's, to be able to pass it on to quote to, you need to have some sort of information on there that you can quote off. And then some things just don't work. You can see they haven't paid attention to certain things. And that's something that I see more, the more experience I get, where I, like you say, I sort of design on site, so I start to see things. So, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have realised those kind of errors. But the more experience I get, the more I can pick them up. Nothing major though. There's none of the designers would work for, I wouldn't work for again. So they're all, we've been pretty lucky in that regard.
But has that ever hurt you in the long run in terms of your estimating? So if they're not clear per se on their details or expectations, and then they come back to you and say, well, that's not what I wanted, or that's what I didn't expect that. Has that ever kind of come back to bite you in any way?
No, my quotes I'm very detailed with, because I don't want the client to be surprised by anything that's extra or think they were getting something that they're not, or vice versa. So I include quite a lot in my quotes, and everything is all itemised on how much everything costs in terms of the turf will be this much, garden beds will be this, plants are this, lighting. I include everything, not just one lump sum at the end. If anything happens like that, I'll show them this is what I've allowed for, and the design. And you've got the plans here, and they didn't include that. So nothing's happened like that yet. Knock on wood. So hopefully it doesn't.
Are you using any type of estimating software that our listeners would benefit from, or on Excel or?
Got it here. It's a piece of paper and a pen.
There you go.
Oh, look at that!
Nothing wrong with that.
I had went to a seminar with a landscaping coach, and they said you should be doing everything on Excel and doing all these bits and pieces. And they're probably right, but that's the way I do it, and it works. Like when we do a job, I keep track of everything that we spend, so I don't know if I make any money on it. But again, that's just a piece of paper with a pen, and keeping track of everything by hand.
You're getting paper prints of the plans or digital copies as well, or is it just all strictly prints?
We get a digital copy emailed to me, and then I'll print it out to quote off, and then we'll have that copy. and I use Trello and have the design on that. And so then all my guys can access the design, and if they're at the job and we need to get something the next day, they can put a note on there saying we need to pick this up, or so they can put things on there that everyone can see on that particular project.
Okay.
So yeah, that's been a good app I've been using for the last couple of years.
Nice. And now you're doing field work from what I've seen on your page, and you're doing all this estimating as well. So what's the balance?
Yeah, it starts to build up a little bit too much, and then I have to have a day off to just do quotes and designs. Yeah, because just get a bit too overwhelmed with how much you've got on, and on the weekends all you're thinking about is what you probably should be doing some work on it. So I spent a couple of days and got cleared of everything we had to do, and then now when they're coming in, I'll work on it straight away, get it done, and then just try and not have it too much of it build up.
So I'm kind of curious, why did you decide to do this work?
So I started when I was 21. So out of school, I went and worked at bars and in hospitality, and obviously didn't like that because it's a horrible industry to work in, working with drunk people all the time and horrible hours. So a guy I knew worked at a golf course, so I went and worked there and liked working outside, but we started work at 5 a.m, so that wasn't ideal. So I knew that I wanted to work outside, and then thought of all the different things you do within landscaping, so tried to get into that. So I went and actually studied horticulture for a year so that I would have a leg up over anyone else who applied at the same time. So that worked out well. So then my plant knowledge was good to start with. And yeah, I've loved it ever since. Like, I don't know how you can do it if you don't love it, because it's a bit too hard on the body.
That is true. You have to be passionate about this. You have to be just crazy enough. Honestly, that's what we've always said.
Yeah. Do you think it's the actual construction, the actual building of things? Do you think it's just being outside? Like what is it for you that ties you to it?
I think it's the variety. So you're not going to the same work site every day. One day, it's funny, we can go in waves of, we'll be building decks like 3 jobs in a row, and then we won't do one for 6 months, and do paving all the time. So there's so many different things that you do within landscaping that you can't get bored of it. Like no job is the same. I find that hard when I go to a job, a client asking how much they think it's going to cost before I've quoted it. And you're just plucking a number out of the air, because everything is so different within landscaping that there's no 2 jobs are the same or even close.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting thing that I want to talk to you about, because I've noticed you have a diversity in your work, and you seem to really not be afraid to do something new. And for us, every time we've done that, there could be some, profitability
problems.
So you talked about, initially just doing those first few jobs and bidding them low to get your foot in the door. One thing that we've noticed here through our observations is really there's some bigger companies that have made, a real good go of it, and they've really kind of grown exponentially. And I've been for years trying to figure out what the formula is. And I think I finally have figured it out with some companies, not all, but there's a streamlining process that they go through, and you can almost see it start to happen where the designs relatively, for the most part, all start to look the same. Certainly the planting design, the same plants, the same kind of massing, everything's the same type of stone, the same fireplace, the outdoor fireplace that they built here. They might tweak it a little bit for the next job, but it's still the same stone. Where when you're doing that, obviously you have a crew of masons that they build that first one, the second, the third, fourth, fireplace that's relatively the same. As they move down the line, they're starting to bang these things out, and really the profit margins, I imagine, are starting to go up. So that can be attractive for some people. We've had a very hard time being able to do that. It's just not my personality. I don't really like doing the same things twice. So I wonder if you can speak to if you've ever had to kind of synthesize through something like that, or not so much cut corners, but think about ways to streamline if that's just not attractive to you, or you rather just keep, building different different things and using different materials and really kind of pushing the envelope?
Yeah, I consider myself more of a landscaper than a businessman. So I could do other things that make more money, but I wouldn't enjoy it as much, and neither would my staff. So that's probably the balance we need to sort of move towards, a bit more business so we can make some more money. But like you say, doing the same things all the time, not like the staff don't like it. There's no satisfaction designing it. So yeah, I can't. You can probably. I'd go and work in IT if I just wanted to make money. So, but I wouldn't like it. So you've got to enjoy yourself. You spend so much time of your life at work.
It's true.
You might as well enjoy it rather than just doing it to make money. You could probably try and do balance a bit of both.
Yeah, that's great perspective. So in that you're building decks and you're doing stonework and you're doing the horticultural, aspect of the business. Have you found it a challenge to find employees that are willing to do all of those things? Because from our perspective and our experience, that has been an issue.
No, not at all. Because it's funny how often when we work on a job, the clients will tell me how hard our staff work. They just never stop. And that's because they enjoy what they're doing as well. So yeah, they're very similar to me in that they actually enjoy landscaping. So it's not easy to find the right ones. Like I've fired more staff than I've employed, or who I've kept on for long periods of time, and that's because you're better off finding the right people than just settling on the ones you've got. So
amen.
True. So you got to know when to let go and maybe be down a person or two and push through and in hopes that you get the right person to come through. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's something we've not been good at.
Yeah, I found through the years that, and it surprises me, and I have to remind myself that not everyone's like me, where
thank God.
True. A lot of people do
Just
like,
saying.
they like doing the same thing all the time. So they just want to do stonework. Like here, you've seen it, Samantha, there's this real, almost disdain. Like people think they're too good to go plant a tree when they do stonework. To me, it's bizarre, where to me, I would think that it would be refreshing to switch it up that day.
Yeah, that finishes off the job as well. We've worked with some designers who they do the plants, and I hate that because I want to do all of it rather than saying we do all of it except the plants, and everyone says, "Oh, the plants look amazing."
Right.
Isn't that's the most, and I love stonework. That's why I do this business. That's kind of my specialty in this outfit here, where Samantha's the plant person. But that day when the plants come in is phenomenal. Even when they're just laid out and they're not even planted yet. It just whole space changes.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Me and my plants, we're magic. So we were looking at the other day, you had a post, you were doing a walkthrough on a project that you're on. And it was funny to me because Neil said to me, it's just amazing and amazingly wonderful how flat that space is. So I'm kind of curious about the actual physical landscape of the area that you work in. So we find ourselves, we really don't have much elevation per se where we work, but we always find ourselves working on sites that have sloping issues. There's like ledge, there's just always something that makes our life really difficult. Just from the actual landscape that we're about to change. Can you just talk a little bit about the landscape that you work in? Are your soils clay? Are they full of stone? I'm just curious about what it's like to physically kind of work in the earth there.
Well, it's quite fascinating how much it changes within Geelong. I was looking up land sizes before of Geelong, and it's 1,300 square kilometres. So that won't mean much to the US listeners, but I don't know what you convert to.
I cannot do the math.
Google will convert that.
Over here.
But it's a relatively big place and not a big population. But the soil can change from being pure sandy loam on the coast, where it's just a dream to dig down for a metre, to horrible clay out in other suburbs. And then that job that I did the video walkthrough on, when we started excavating, found the soil was absolutely amazing. It was incredible. So we stockpiled it and then spread it back on the same site.
Nice.
So yeah, and then probably 5 minutes down the road would be horrible, rocky, clay, and just, it varies so much. But so there's flat areas of Geelong and hilly areas. It's quite a big range. So there's certain suburbs, you know what the soil is going to be like, and it'll be hilly. But probably, I'd say 90% would be relatively flat, or what you consider flat. So
wow,
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how does those different conditions with the soil, the clay, the silt, the sand, how does that determine your base preparation, say for flat work or for walls and things that you're building?
So depending on the wall, if you get engineering for it, they'll have the soil sample or know the suburb, so they'll know what the soil is like. So they'll specify how it needs to be.
Okay.
But yeah, you just basically got to go deeper and wider in sand, and not so bad in the clay.
Now, are you able to build a wall to a certain height without an engineer? Is there a certain cutoff?
Yeah, 1 meter, so about three and a bit feet.
That's about the same.
No, we're 4.
4
Typically
for
4.
retaining. Okay.
Yeah.
Should have known that.
Yeah, you should have. That's why I work in the office. But well, that brings me to something else we were just kind of discussing amongst ourselves, just in terms of climate. Can you work in the winter where you are? Do you get snow?
Yeah, so that's something I found interesting listening to yours and a couple other US landscaping podcasts, is how most places seem to shut down in winter. But I looked up something, I was trying to find a similar climate for the states you've got over there. And I think it's something around San Francisco. They kind of
temperate. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. So the average in summer is probably around mid-20s, which I didn't convert that, but that might be around.
Where's my converter?
Could be around 80 degrees maybe, or 80 or 90.
See, I just have to say, but Joel, it's amazing that you have a sense of it being 80 or 90. We're doing the from Celsius to Fahrenheit, where Neil and I are looking at each other going, I have no idea what that.
I got to say, I knew what a meter was, where we were having this conversation earlier. We also, we were having
I did not know. I knew it was around 3 feet. I just didn't know exactly.
So we were having this in-depth discussion about that and the Coriolis effect.
Oh, we'll get back to it.
But that's a whole nother podcast, man.
Is your freezing temperature 32?
32,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's because the formula is like, I think it's Celsius times 9 divided by 5 plus 32. So
how do you remember that?
I just saw it.
The funny thing is,
I knew it was plus 32. So we probably don't get below. Maybe it's rare to get below 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
In winter.
That's beautiful. So the world works in mysterious ways, right? I believe there's this energy out there where, things just fall into place for a reason. Now we knew you were going to be the next podcast, and we were taking a road trip through the States a few weeks ago. And for some reason, in the beginning of the trip, everywhere we go, I just check, the average annual temperature, well, by month, every place we went. So I'm trying to get an understanding of it. And everything's in Fahrenheit. Everything's great. And halfway through the trip, for whatever reason, my phone decided to do everything in Celsius. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Celsius? Right? What is Celsius?
I don't know what Google did, but Google's messing with me.
Yeah, right. Like, why is it so cold here?
5 degrees.
It's summer, for God's sakes. This doesn't seem right.
Although it did snow like the week after we left Colorado.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of days.
Yeah, we don't get any snow in Geelong at all.
I don't know if I should be sad for you or think that that's amazing.
Well, within 3 hours, there's ski fields you can drive to. So.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Wild.
3 hours, that's great.
Wow, that's intense. So another kind of general kind of question, the wildfires last year, we heard so much about that. I sort of wondered, how is Australia recovering from that? And how has the green industry kind of helped with that or been affected by that?
I don't know how it's been affected. Most of it was in sort of rural areas, away from any major cities. During that time, there was just smoke in the sky for probably more than a month, I reckon. It was a while there. I do know of a landscaper who got a crew together and went over there and helped out, and there's a lot of builders and that who did. But that's the hardest part about COVID has been for those communities affected by that, because when it was happening, everyone was saying, "Oh, make sure we all go and support these communities during like the holidays." And then COVID happened, so people haven't been able to get back there and support them, those communities that shut down. But now the regional communities can, as of Sunday, so as of a week ago, regional communities can travel within regional communities now because the restrictions have lifted. So yeah, a lot of people are going on holidays totally to those bushfire affected communities now. So yeah, but it's been doubly tough for them.
Right, it'll probably be years of recovery, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And they were so massive as well, and it's just insane when you think of how many millions of wildlife died and all the people and properties. It's just it's a big country, Australia, though. So there's a lot of open space.
Yeah, I was wondering what percentage of the country was actually inhabited.
Because I think it's I think it's about 80%, or so. It's close to the size of the USA. Australia is, but our population is 26 million.
Wow.
Yeah, we're 32 billion. Like
30 million. That'd be a real problem. A real problem if you're in the billions.
I know, I'm coming off really intelligent.
Like I said, this is the latest podcast that we've ever done.
What is that?
The meter threw her off. My fault. I started talking.
Oh yeah, no, I was curious about that. I mean, when we were seeing the pictures come out, it was devastating to see. And I mean, I know I donated to Save the Koala Foundation because it was just heartbreaking to see that. And we are, the western part of our country right now is on fire pretty severely as well. It's scary stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I found interesting while we were traveling, something that we take for granted here, was water and water rights in some of the areas that we were. I was just curious where you get your water from. I know you're working kind of in the suburbs, but also in the cities. Is that all? Are you working with wells, or are there reservoirs? Or is water an issue there? Irrigation, these sorts of things?
No, it's all mains water, so I don't even know where it comes from. But yeah, pretty much, I don't know what percentage it would be, but most people in certainly Victoria have got just water that comes from just straight from the tap from wherever the council dams are, really. So yeah, there's not an issue at all. Like there's probably, I don't know, 15 years ago there was water restrictions because we're in a bit of a drought. So you're supposed to only shower for a certain amount of minutes, and you weren't allowed to water plants or the grass. So we went through a period where we were pulling out people's grass and putting in gravel because they couldn't water it and keep it alive. And then when the restrictions lifted on that, so then we went back and ripped out all the gravel and put grass back in.
Are you doing any artificial turfs?
Yeah. So I've got it in my place. I don't mind it. It's, there are days it gets hot where you can't go on it, but you don't really want to go outside those days anyway, and it's only a few days a year. I certainly appreciate it's not a sustainable product, but yeah, it's got its place.
But you're not watering it every day either, which...
Well, you're also not fertilizing, and you don't have that runoff, so there's definitely a give and take. The heat index rises a little bit, I suppose, but you're not polluting the groundwater.
Right.
So
I guess I'm surprised to hear you say that about water not being an issue in Australia. I mean, I thought Australia was prone to droughts. I would have thought groundwater would have been
maybe where
an issue.
Not there.
Nah, not pretty much. Nowhere in the main cities. Like that's why it's kind of such a big country, but it's focused in around the capital cities in each state. So it's not spread out a lot where there might be more issues there. But no, I didn't know the USA had any issues like that. I just assumed it was all the same as what it was here. There's some places down here that have got access. If there's a river going through their property, they can get a permit to access from the river.
Oh,
but no, there's no. Yeah, we're probably a bit lucky, I suppose.
Yeah, we felt that way on our trip because some of the areas where we were in Colorado, they had rivers passing through the back portions of people's properties, but upstream there was a water rights issue with cattle farmers. So they had the right to divert that water away. So downstream, it was completely dried up. It was really seasonally, but completely dried up this time of year.
Right. Well, the people that had the wells there, so we stayed in a little cottage, and they warned you, just be careful of your water usage because it could run out.
It could run out,
essentially, which, we were kind of surprised about. But there's definitely, I think, a lot of communities in California, in particular, that they go through water restrictions, and even locally, where we are on the other side of the country, different towns will have water bans where you can't water your lawns. I mean, this happens almost every year.
It's been a dry year too.
Yeah. A lot of, if you're in the city, you're on city water, but we're in a more rural community. So we're on wells, and a lot of people are on wells. So you do have to kind of be aware of what you're using.
Yeah. There's certainly places in, more rural areas that have bore water. So they've got, groundwater somewhere that they tap into. But it's the vast majority is just non-city water.
Do you do irrigation as well, or is that a whole different?
Yeah, we do that as well. Yep.
So you do the irrigation, the planting, all the stonework, and you build decks. It's pretty impressive. Pergolas? A good measure?
Only timber ones. The steel stuff, we get another guy to do that.
Nice. I had a question about.
I'm sure you did.
Okay. So one of the projects that really caught my attention with you was, I believe it was the Melbourne project we touched on earlier with the Bluestone Paving.
Yep.
And it looked like it was in New England. It was amazing because we have what we call our Bluestone, but that's from Pennsylvania and New York. It looks very similar, and the aesthetic that you were building with just reminded me of home. So that was pretty cool. And I'm wondering what the sequence of construction is with that material. I noticed you're pouring a slab and building up off the slab.
Yeah, so with that one, because of the irregular shapes of the bluestone, we had to lay the bluestone out and then mark where they were going and then box the concrete up to that. So we had to, and they were probably, I don't know, I'm just trying to work out how many kilos they would have been and converted to pounds. But they would have
kilos?
Been
what?
110 pounds. Some of those pieces were.
Okay.
So they're not easy enough not that nice to move around. But yeah, I had to pick them up, put them down, mark it, pick them up, put them down, pour the concrete, and then lay them again. So there's very labour intensive, but
the end result was really cool. But the forms themselves was really intriguing. When I saw the way you formed that out, when I saw the slab, I was like, "What is going on here?" It looked really cool. Really cool.
That's something I've found interesting again with the USA. But when you've got the ground freezing so often, how a lot of places don't even do it on concrete. Don't do their paving on concrete. Right. Is that because of the ground freezing, so it expands and contracts?
Yep. So we're building more of a flexible system, I like to call it. We know that ground's going to move. So our frost here is down to 42 inches per code. So anytime we put a footing in for a pergola or even a structural foundation wall for a garage, we have to excavate to 42 inches. Yeah. And that's where our concrete begins if you don't want it to move. Okay. So with a patio, that's not practical. Oftentimes we're just digging out the topsoil, the flexible soil, the soil that holds moisture and moves and flexes and freezes and thaws. So a lot of the movement now, which is great, is we're digging that soil out and then we're building with a bigger, open, clean aggregate, like 1.5 inches or a 3/4 inch stone compacted. And then we'll set our stone on a 3/8 stone, an angular stone. And the theory is that it is a flexible system. It is moving to a degree, but that movement, you're really not noticing it because of everything below is really just allowing that water to pass through and move away.
Yeah.
And then once we start setting things on mortar on top of concrete, eventually those things can move and flex and pop and open up.
Yeah.
So, So we've done that more flagstone, like what you would call the crazy paving style. And even in travertine, we've done it with, in bricks and concrete pavers, we'll set it on that type of system. And it's worked really well.
Yeah. So do places where it doesn't freeze as much, they don't need to do that sort of depth?
Probably not. I think and that also depends too on some of the soil conditions. So if we have a real clay soil, we'll take out even more. We've had to take out, in some cases, 18 inches of depth for a patio. And with that being said, we've had to do some subsurface drainage underneath the patio. Because once you dig out that hole for a patio, if you envision a rectangle on the ground that's dug out like a shallow swimming pool, once that water gets down to there and that ground's frozen, where does that water go? So we'll have essentially perforated drains at a low end. So we'll dig the profile of that excavation to pitch in one direction underground. So on top of that soil mass, a vision that freezes, we'll pitch the water down to a low point, and then we'll have a pipe that collects that water and outlets it somewhere else. So it can get intense depending on the soil condition.
Yeah, I was going to say, so a lot of it has to do with the soil conditions.
Yeah.
Neil, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What does this question mean?
What?
Yes. Does everyone wear Blundstones? What is that?
You don't know
what is that?
You don't know what Blundstones are?
I have no idea.
I have a pair.
Do you know, Joel?
Yeah, I know. Not everyone wears them.
A pair of what?
Steel capped work boots.
Boots.
Oh.
So we don't have steel capped here.
Yeah, right.
The black boots I have, the ones you slip on, they're super comfortable.
Is it an Australian thing?
The ones I use are called Redbacks. They're made in Australia. I don't know if Bluestone are made here. So yes, I support Australia with my work boots. But yeah, everyone wears steel capped work boots here. So just for more safety.
They're super comfortable.
Well, I'm just looking at this question. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like a piece of jewelry?
No.
Is that what is it?
I have a whole list of questions.
Mine are definitely slip-ons as well, because I don't want to have to tie my shoelaces off.
Yeah.
Up to going.
Slip-on boots that I have.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know they were called Blundstones. I thought it was earrings or something like.
Well, the next
bracelet.
The next note is awesome because I noticed that you call thunderstorms crackers, which I love. Right? Am I right?
What do we call them?
Cracker? Did you say something? Was it you had a cracker on one of your job sites? I thought you were implying it was a thunderstorm.
Nah, that just means it's something good, possibly.
That was wrong. Oh. You learn something new every day.
Yeah. I do get a bit loose in some of my captions in the Instagram.
In which you should, I think. So Instagram's a funny thing where I've gone back and forth, where I get paranoid that potential clients are looking at it because we've actually started to get jobs from Instagram, which kind of blows my mind. I never saw that happening. So I'm always, sometimes I think I have to have this very professional all the time, display of content. And lately I'm just like, whatever, man. I am who I am and we are the business. So here's my personality, love it or leave it.
That's
so
it. Like you're going to be the person who turns up on site. So you can't hide who you are. So you might as well show who that is straight up.
I think so. It doesn't hurt to show a little personality.
Nah.
What do you think? What do you think about social media? How do you use it? How do you not use it? Could you live without it, or do you wish you lived without it?
No, I could live without it, but I absolutely love it. I've made relationships with other trades just through Instagram. There's a pool builder we've worked with. We just met on Instagram, commented on a couple of each other's posts, and then talking to each other about a job together. And so I love it.
That's great.
Yeah, and there's obviously a negative side to it, but if you focus on the positive, you realise there's more positive than negative in it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think that's why it's important to show your personality, because you at least you're putting the real thing out there. You're not pretending. Whereas if you're pretending, it's in the back of your mind, and I think it's just kind of like bad energy. So,
but that does go just to the idea that you were kind of mentioning before, though, that sometimes when you see stuff on Instagram with some of these designers who shall not be named, but you're just saying, you realize, oh, well, they're not really fully doing their job, and now I'm responsible for all this. So you still, people can kind of build themselves up to be something that's not quite real. So I guess with anything, you just have to kind of be aware of that.
Yeah, like if you make a mistake on a job, I'm not going to do a post saying, have a look how bad I did this job just right here. I understand, people understand that not everything that happens on the work site is on Instagram, so you're only going to put on most of the things that you're happy with to show. So they realise that not everything on Instagram is real, but as long as what you do put on there is actually work you've done and you're not, photoshopping something to make it look different, I think that should be fine.
Interesting. I've put probably twice mistakes that I've made on Instagram just to do it. And honestly, it was like great therapy for me. I was like, hey, look what I did. I screwed this up. Now I got to fix it. It's kind of funny and interesting to do. Not that I would recommend that, but why not?
But it doesn't make you human though. I mean,
yeah.
And other people can learn from it.
People make mistakes every day. Like
that's true.
That's how you learn.
It's funny with my guys, every time I make a mistake, I say the same thing. I say, well, I make one mistake every year and that was it. And they just look at me like, whatever.
Just last week, actually, we were setting up, excuse me. Just last week, we were setting up an irrigation system and the client told me that he wanted an extra one for the veggie gardens. And he said, I'm happy to pay for it. But I said, no, I probably should have realised that you obviously got to water the veggie garden differently to the rest of the garden. So we should have done that initially. So, I'll just add that in for free. And then I told my guys about it, that when we're thinking about the irrigation, obviously we should think about how many zones we need, and veggie garden should have their own one. So
but that goes back to when you are a full-time designer, when you're 20 years older, you're going to have that knowledge base from all that field experience for sure.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like the plan for this one didn't have, irrigation zones or anything like that. So, whereas other plans have that we've had. So,
okay. Yeah,
and it makes sense.
Is that an asset for you? The fact that you do all these different elements of the build, so you're a one-stop shop from a designer standpoint. Do you think?
It can be a blessing and a curse because sometimes a client might ask me for my opinion on a certain thing. So, I might have a different opinion to the designer, but the designer's got us the work and that's their vision. So my opinion, even though it might be different, you don't want to upset the designer.
So how do you work that scenario? I mean, I'm sure every situation is different. So how do you tactfully navigate that whole thing?
Especially if you see a problem.
Yes.
No, if it's a problem, then I'll just point it out straight away. But if it's just something on aesthetics, then that's just my opinion. So I don't have to pass that on to the client. I'll just get it. I just might say it's just to the designer, you could try this. So then it's the client talking to the designer about it. Or I might talk to the designer and say, I provide that solution before we talk to the client about it. So then it can come from them. So like you say, every situation is different. But if it's an issue, then I'll definitely say something about it.
I'm curious too. We started to talk a little bit about the stonework that you do, but we always, when we talk to people from different parts of the country or the world, we always like to know what kind of stone you actually have to work with.
And where is it from? Is there native stone to Australia that you're working with, or is it being imported?
So the bluestone on that Middle Park job in Melbourne that you would have seen. So that's something I've spoken to you about before, Neil. I think our bluestone is basalt and yours is sandstone.
Oh, so yours is super hard.
Wow, basalt. Yeah, that's really, really dense, right?
Yeah. So basalt is what we call bluestone. And some of that we get from Vietnam or China, but that stuff was from Warrnambool, or Port Fairy, which is 3 hours away or 3 or 4 hours away from Geelong.
Okay.
And in New South Wales, their local stone is sandstone. So you'll see a lot of sandstone block wall, retaining walls, and it's like a yellowy orange kind of, or creamy kind of color.
Well, I was going to ask you the colors on that, because years ago we were there was a stone yard that was importing sandstone, but I think it was from India, but it was just these really beautiful colors in buff and tan, and sometimes there's a slight kind of rainbow mixing effect to it. Is it kind of like that?
No. It probably is. It's a bit more pared back than that. Like we've used that sandstone as well. It's like a rainbow on a stone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what they use in New South Wales. In South Australia, they have a bit of granite, but that's not very popular. I don't think they have a lot of it there. And then Western Australia is limestone, which is like we've used that once before, and it's absolutely incredible because you can see like coral in the stone.
Oh,
What color is it?
It's white.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot
I think
of
we've
white
seen a lot.
stone.
Yeah, a lot of white. We've been wondering, what that was.
There's another designer. Is it Outside by Denise?
Yeah, she's from Western Australia.
A lot of white stone.
Yep.
Really, really pretty the way she uses it.
That's beautiful.
Now some of the flagstone or the crazy paving that you're doing is more some earthy tones in it too. I've noticed. There's a pool project that you had a nice drone shot of recently.
Yep. So that's a quartz. So that was that's imported. I don't know where that comes from, but there's a lot of stone we use is imported as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting that you're just saying that there's not a lot of granite. We are, I think, pretty blessed here because we have a ton of granite. I would say that's probably one of the major stones that we have.
And different colors of it. So we have different tones of gray, cream colors. We have
pink.
Blues. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So it seems a lot softer too, the stone you use to be able to get those really tight joins that you do.
Okay, so you're probably looking at, so our bluestone being sandstone, I imagine is easier to work than the basalt.
Yep. Yeah.
Does the basalt, does that have, what's the texture? Would it be slippery? Is it more like a sandpaper texture to it?
Yeah, probably close. It can be a little bit slippery, but it's sawn stone, so it's not perfectly smooth. It just got very slight saw cuts in it.
Yeah, so our bluestone would be either natural cleft, which is the face that's naturally split. So you'll see some dips and valleys in that, some nice shapes and formations. And then a lot of our bluestones actually thermal finish. So that heat treatment, it takes that sawn cut, that honed finish, and gives it a real kind of gritty sandpaper texture, which looks nice, and it's slip resistance there. But I think you're probably thinking about our Goshen stone, which is a mica schist. And that is super forgiving. I mean,
it's like butter.
Baby. You could basically trim any shape you want if you have enough patience once you get used to it. Yeah, it's very, very forgiving. Yep. And that stuff we set all of that dry. So that's all on that pervious system that we do.
And how thick is it?
Oof, some of the pieces are up to 4 inches, man. It is heavy. And we're doing, I have 2 vac machines, the lift vacs. One's a 2-man job that does like 350 pounds. And then one I put on my excavator and I can lift like about 1,500 pounds, but it doesn't always lift that stone because that stone is so clefty. There's such a gnarly kind of texture to the top that it's not always doing the trick on those. So
that's something I've noticed as well. Like we don't have a lot of those, or not a lot of people use those type of products in Australia. They're stone lifting products. So
they're life changing.
Yeah,
maybe soon.
I'd be worried they're going to drop off.
They are, at first it's a little, I still tell my guys, don't make sure your feet are underneath this thing. But I do a lot of monolithic steps, big chunks of bluestone and granite, and we suck them up and we set them down. So it's changed the way we work, and it's saved a lot of labor. It's a morale booster, I'll tell you that much, and a time saver. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's definitely a level of efficiency.
Yeah.
To using them too.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Hey, Joel, have you ever been to the U.S.? I was just curious.
No, New Zealand and Fiji is the only places I've been, and they're both within 4 hours of Australia. So,
well, that sounds amazing. Oh, I've only been to New Zealand. Oh, that's my dream. I know. It's amazing.
If I go to, I do want to get to the States one day and go to a Seahawks game. Back when they've got fans there.
You got to go while Russell Wilson's still quarterback, though, because he's amazing.
Yeah. Actually, no, I've been to Singapore as well. I went there for the Singapore Garden Show. I just did a fly in, fly out over to there one day. But yeah, with kids, it's a bit harder to go a long way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we've never been to Australia, and that is definitely on our bucket list.
No doubt.
For sure.
maybe we'll come visit.
Especially since everything that Neil's ever learned has been from the Simpsons cartoon about Australia. So I'm not sure if you know the Simpsons or not, but
it's all accurate too.
Is it?
Is it? They had the great episode where Lisa was trying to explain to Bart the Coriolis effect, and they went to this whole thing about the equator. And she said, everything south of the equator, the water moves, I think clockwise. Yes,
yeah, I don't
clockwise.
I don't know.
So Bart spins the globe around and he points to the first country he sees, which is Argentina. And then he puts his finger down on the globe and he goes, "Oh, and you mean Rand McNally?" As in Rand McNally was a state, because he's Bart Simpson.
But see, it's the name of the globe. Did you know that Rand McNally is the name of the globe company?
No.
Okay, see, it's not.
Well, maybe they have different globes there, but you should have known that because our globes are Rand McNally. All our maps as a kid. So it's a little logo at the bottom of the globe, and he points to it, and he goes, "Oh, and Rand McNally." And Lisa's just like, "Oh my God."
And I'm like, "What?" I didn't get it either. All right, I'm not alone.
All right, so before we wrap up, tell us. Let's answer 3 simple questions because he's from Australia. I want to know a band we should be listening to, a book we should read, and what else?
Oh, that's so much pressure. I can't remember that kind of stuff.
Just tell us 3 awesome things that we should go research
about Australia.
A lot of the music I've been listening to, I've been flashing back to when I was 20, so back 17 years ago. So I've been listening to The Darkness at the moment. I don't know if they're...
Okay.
I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look it up.
Yep.
And also a good song, if you like a bit of electric guitar and a little drum solo, is Wolf Mother, White Unicorn.
Okay.
Is the name of the band White Unicorn?
Awesome name.
The name of the band is Wolf Mother. The song is White Unicorn.
So the song is White Unicorn.
Yep. So that band's not around anymore, but
what a name for a song! I love it.
Yeah, that's a good song too. I can't remember the last time I've read a book.
I'm with you, brother. You're too busy.
That's a hard question.
My dad gave me up for my birthday probably 4 years ago. About because I used to read biographies. I used to love that, but yeah, now I just don't have time or energy because I always fall asleep if I start reading.
I don't blame you.
Happens to me. I can't get through.
Haven't got onto audio books yet.
Then what do you do to decompress? What do you do to relax?
Just sport really in terms of watching. So you guys have got the NFL, we've got AFL, so Australian Football League.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And our team played last night, or the night before last, and they made the finals, so the playoffs for the first time in 9 years.
Oh, yay.
But that's not rugby. That is.
No, it's AFL.
So what rules are different?
It's a completely different sport. So most of the punters who are Australian have played AFL, not rugby.
Okay.
But it's worth looking into. I'm wearing my t-shirt at the moment is totally mirrored, but it's for the brand, which is Pat McAfee, who used to be the Colts punter. That's his brand.
Okay.
And he just discovered AFL and says he wished he discovered it 20 years ago.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, once you start watch a highlights package, you'll love it. So yeah, we're just going into the finals next week. So we won't do any good in it, but at least they're there.
So all right, so it's football. So is soccer? Yeah. See?
So it's kind of like a mix. It's like a mix. It's probably unique, really. It's not anything like rugby, but you've got kicking and catching. So yeah, it's like aerial ping pong.
Cool.
All right, I love it. Well, I think we're off the hook. I think you got all your questions in there, buddy.
I think so. Yeah, this was good. I think this is going to be a fun one for our listeners, and I'm so excited that we were able to podcast with Australia.
I know this like the world has just opened up to us.
Boom.
Where will they go next? What country?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I did once. So I do have to apologize to you because I talked to you like 2 months ago about doing this. And then it was like, we just couldn't make it happen with our season. And during that time, once you expressed interest, I'm like, we need to have the Landscapes and Pancakes International Edition. So if any of our listeners out there want to hear from somebody in a different country, we'd love to make that happen. So let's make that happen, including you, my friend. Let us know, please.
Yeah, we'll do.
So let's just tell the people where we can find you.
Yes.
So you can go to instylegardens.com.au, right? And then you're on Instagram at instyle_gardens.
Yep.
And then is there anything else we should throw out there?
No, I'll spend most of my time on Instagram. Like, we've got the Facebook as well, but all I do is just copy what I post on Instagram onto there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I enjoy being on Instagram and replying to messages on there. And yeah, the website. Or if you're in Australia, you'll be able to see us on the TV show The Block in probably about 6 weeks.
Excellent.
Just like a reno show where we do the landscaping on one of the properties.
Cool.
So that's a pretty intense time.
What was that experience like, and how long did you have to do this?
So I don't know any examples I've got to compare it to shows that you've got in the US, but it's like a reno show. There's 5 houses and 5 teams, or 5 couples. So there's like husband and wife, father and daughter, a couple of friends, that sort of thing. And they have to renovate a house, and we go in and it's a week per room. And yeah, we did the landscaping. We did it last year for the first time, and it was insane. And this year was even worse. Like, there was 2 weeks we were there. The first week worked 93 hours, and the second week was 106 hours in 6 days. So,
wow.
But yeah,
wow.
But what we created was the best design, the best gardens we've built. So I'm looking forward to that going to air, so then I'll be able to post the photos of it.
Good for you, man.
Awesome.
Now, with that tight, crazy schedule, were you able to actually build everything with integrity? I always wonder that about these shows.
I wouldn't buy any of the houses that are on the show.
I love the truth, man, because we're all thinking it. We're all thinking it, watching the shows.
Only because I can't afford it. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
Okay. Right. But
Right.
the designs are probably all to die for, right? I mean, everything's probably just beautiful and state of the art.
Yeah, like they're going to sell for over $3 million each, I think. Hopefully, who knows these days? But yeah,
Right.
there's some. Yeah, it's amazing houses.
Well,
But
Joel, I'm a little. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I'm a
they
little
spend
worried
time
about
fixing it up. They spend the months after the show stops fixing up any errors, so it's all fine by the time it gets sold.
I gotcha. Little cosmetic things here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Bound to happen.
I was gonna say, Joel, I'm a little worried about you because I think you're working too hard. I think you're working too much. And so I just want to make sure that you take time for yourself. See your wife once in a while.
Well, we were going to go on holiday soon, but can't do that. So, yeah, just stay at home.
That's true. You may as well work. So how long is holiday? Please tell me how long.
We go to Queensland every year for a week.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's like going to Miami for you guys. So it's just
Well, listen,
sun and
I want you to take a break. I want you to relax a little bit. I want you to spend some time with your wife.
It's turned into a counseling
I know.
session.
And thank you, but in all seriousness, thank you so much for taking the time, for getting up early on a Sunday morning when I know you get up early every day to have this conversation with us. We really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And go Patriots. We'll talk. We'll talk after the game.
We'll talk some smack
when you wake
over
up.
Instagram.
Don't
I'll
be
be
afraid
sending
to
you a message. And I want to thank you guys for doing the podcast too, because I like listening to landscaping podcasts. So it's good to have people actually producing them. So thank you for that.
Awesome. And it's like no work at all, right, Samantha?
No,
It's a
it's
piece of
really,
cake.
it's a breeze. It's fine.
Plenty of time to do this. And that's why we didn't do one all summer.
Right. It's good. It's good.
Thanks,
Excellent.
man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.